Welcome back, everybody. This week has been wild, hasn't it? Every time I refresh the news, it's another crazy update with former President Trump, his legal stuff, and him somehow getting back in the White House.
It's been a lot.
It has. And, in the middle of all that, we're also seeing history being made with Rep-elect Sarah McBride's big win. So much to unpack.
A lot of contrasting emotions too, right?
Definitely.
Some celebrating, others very concerned.
Exactly.
We have a lot to cover in this deep dive. Justice, representation, future of democracy, all that.
It's huge. So let's just dive in. First, former President Trump. It's surreal. A president guilty of a crime during his first term, no less. And he's back in the Oval. It's unprecedented. It's mind-boggling. Can you remind us about the hush money? What exactly was he found guilty of?
Sure. So it all started with those hush money payments.
Right.
To Stormy Daniels, the adult film actress.
During the 2016 campaign.
Yes. They were trying to keep her quiet about an alleged affair with Trump. The prosecution said those payments, $130,000, were falsified business records. They were hidden in Trump's company records. And that's why he was convicted on 34 felony counts.
34.
34.
That's a lot. And yet he's back in the White House.
Yeah.
What can people do legally who want to challenge this? Has this ever happened before?
You're right. This is totally new territory. We've never had a president with a felony conviction working from the Oval Office. So it brings up all sorts of legal questions. For example, some experts are saying the 14th Amendment could be used against Trump. You know, the one that says anyone involved in insurrection or rebellion can't hold office.
Right.
Some say that could apply to Trump because of January 6th. But that's just one interpretation, and it would probably get challenged a lot in court.
So there's this legal cloud hanging over him, but he's acting like nothing happened. His spokesperson called the whole thing a hoax and a witch hunt and said now Trump can focus on making America great again. Sounds like they're using the same playbook as before.
Yeah, going straight to his base and saying any legal trouble is just politics.
And the Manhattan District Attorney actually requested to delay the case until 2029.
Which means Trump could serve his second term without dealing with this.
Adds another layer to this whole thing.
It does.
So where does that leave us? We've got a president with a felony conviction who says he did nothing wrong, and the legal system is trying to figure out what to do because it's never happened before. This feels like a recipe for gridlock, maybe even a constitutional crisis.
The potential for gridlock is definitely there. It's pretty much guaranteed that Trump's legal issues are going to be a huge problem during his presidency. Could really affect how well he can govern and probably make things even more divided politically. And with that request to postpone the case, it raises the question of, is justice delayed, justice denied? This situation has huge implications for the country.
It really does. We've got to keep our eyes on this for sure. And on the topic of new territory, our second story this week is about Rep-elect Sarah McBride, first openly transgender member of Congress. Huge for representation. But right as she gets there, House Speaker Mike Johnson puts this new rule into place. And it's causing a lot of controversy.
It is, yeah. This new rule bans transgender women from using the women's restrooms in the Capitol and House office buildings. And a lot of people are seeing it as discriminatory and a setback for transgender rights.
It's like this huge step forward, and then bam, this policy that feels so exclusionary. What are people saying on both sides of this? What's the reasoning for the rule, and what are the worries from those who don't like it?
Well, Speaker Johnson says it's about biological sex.
Okay.
He calls it aligning with scientific and biological reality.
Right.
His supporters say it's about privacy and safety for women. But then you have those against the rule, including some members of Congress, saying it discriminates against transgender individuals, creates a hostile environment, maybe even unsafe for them.
So it's two completely different ways of looking at it.
Exactly.
One's about biological sex, the other's about gender identity and how transgender people experience life. What are other members of Congress saying about all this?
There are a lot of different reactions, which shows how divided people are on transgender rights in general. Rep. McBride herself said she doesn't agree with the rule, but she'll follow it.
Okay.
She says her focus is on serving her constituents and working on things like lowering costs for families. But on the other side, you have Rep. Nancy Mace.
Right.
She's strongly in favor of the rule, says it's a win for women's rights, and she even wants to introduce more legislation to restrict transgender rights.
This is dividing Congress big time. And this isn't just about restrooms, is it? This feels like it's about transgender rights as a whole, about inclusion and representation in government.
100%. Like Rep. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez has been very vocal against the rule. She's worried about transgender individuals being assaulted and says there isn't even a clear plan for enforcing this. And that lack of clarity about enforcement brings up a whole other set of issues.
Oh yeah, like who's going to actually enforce this?
Right. And how will they decide who can use which restroom?
Exactly.
All these unanswered questions could lead to confusion, discrimination, maybe even harassment.
It sounds like a mess just waiting to happen. So what does all this mean in the bigger picture, both for the U.S. government and for society as a whole?
I think this shows just how much work there still is to do when it comes to LGBTQ+ rights and representation in government. Rep. McBride being elected was a huge step forward.
It was.
It's a sign of progress. But this restroom rule shows that the fight for equality is far from over. It makes us ask, how do we make spaces truly inclusive? Spaces that respect everyone's dignity and rights, no matter their gender identity. And this isn't just in Congress, it's mirroring what's happening all over the country culturally and politically.
It's a reminder that even when we see progress, there can still be pushback. We've talked about a lot today. A president with a conviction back in the White House, a historic first in Congress facing huge obstacles. This week has been intense, a lot of emotions and events that make us ask, what does it mean to be American in 2024? So what do we do now? How can we understand these two stories, and what can we as individuals do in this crazy world? I don't know about you, but I'm feeling kind of overwhelmed by all this.
Yeah, I get it.
A president who was convicted is back in charge. There's this fight over basic rights, and it feels like everything is up in the air. How are we supposed to make sense of any of this?
You're right. It's easy to feel overwhelmed. There's so much information coming at us all the time, and it's hard to know what to focus on. But I think these two stories really show us how important it is to be informed and engaged. We can't just sit back and watch this happen. We need to actually participate in creating the kind of future we want.
Okay, so what does that look like? What can we actually do to make a difference and have our voices heard?
Well, first, we have to educate ourselves. We can't just skim the headlines. We need to dig deeper, go beyond those catchy sound bites, and really try to understand these complicated issues.
Like really do our research.
Right, and then be critical about the information we're taking in. Look for different perspectives and question our own biases. Once we've done that, then we can start having those important conversations.
With our friends and family.
Exactly. We can advocate for policies that align with our values and hold our elected officials accountable.
That makes sense. So instead of getting caught up in anger or feeling hopeless, we can channel that energy into actually doing something, whether it's reaching out to our representatives, supporting organizations, or even just having those tough conversations with people we know. We all have a part to play.
It's easy to feel powerless when we look at these big problems, but change really does start at the individual level.
Yeah.
Every single voice, every action we take, no matter how small it seems, it all adds up. It's about working together to build a better society.
This deep dive has really made me think. It's shown how important it is to stay informed, be critical thinkers, and most importantly, to take action. We're living in a time of huge change, but that also means there's a lot of potential. What we do today will impact the world of tomorrow.
I agree. And as we move forward into this unknown territory, we need to have both courage and compassion. Let's have those hard conversations, listen to each other's viewpoints, and work together to create a future where everyone has justice and equality.
Well said. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. We hope you found it informative and helpful. Remember to stay curious, stay engaged, and keep fighting for a better world. Until next time.